everyone. My name is Scott Ryan, and I am the host of It's Our Time with Scott Ryan. I mean, what are the chances of me being Scott Ryan and the name of the show has Scott Ryan in it? Whew. So I just got back from Dallas, where I got to host all of the Q&As at the David Lynch retrospective at the Texas Theater, curated by my good friend Daniel Knox, and all of the wonderful people at the Texas Theater. It was an amazing 12 days. And over the next couple days, right here on my YouTube channel, The Blue Rose Magazine, I will be showing all of those Q&As. So make sure you subscribe, because you're going to get so many wonderful interviews. It's incredible. We've got Sherilyn Fenn and Kimmy Robertson and Michael Horse and Dwayne Dunham and a bunch of other people that I'm for Natasha Gregson Wagner and Balthazar Getty, just like one after another. We filmed them all, and they're going to be here at the Blue Rose Magazine YouTube channel over the next couple days. So you're not going to want to miss that. Also, if you're in the LA area on June 23rd and June 24th, you're going to want to come out to the Lumiere Cinema, where I will be there on one night with Firewalk with Me. We're going to show Firewalk with Me and then do a panel. It's going to be hosted by George Griffith from Twin Peaks: The Return. And on June 24th, we'll be doing Lost Highway. We're going to screen the movie, and then we're doing a panel with Natasha Gregson Wagner and Debbie Zoller. And, I mean, who's cuter than Natasha Gregson Wagner? No one. Debbie Zoller, Peter Deming. On Firewalk with Me, we have Mike Malone, who was the set dresser on Firewalk with Me, as well as all of Twin Peaks. George Griffith will be hosting those, and then I will be signing and selling books after. You can get tickets for both events, but only for a couple days. I don't know how long they're going to do that, but they're discounted, and then you have to buy them singularly. But right now, 2 movies, 2 panels, with celebrities, only $40 for a night out in LA. Come on. You're not going to do better than that. And speaking of going to the movies, what we have for us today is director Alexander Philippe, who directed Lynch Oz. And I gotta tell you, normally when there is a David Lynch thing, I'm not really into it, because I'm like, it's gonna be stuff I already know. What do I need to watch this for? Lynch Oz is not that. This is not your typical documentary. It is put together so interestingly. It's all clips. And it's not just like one talking head telling you things. It's split into 6 chapters. They have 6 artists who sort of give their theory of what David Lynch feels about The Wizard of Oz and how The Wizard of Oz has shaped his work. And, you sort of get this person's, and then you get this person's. And so there's all kinds of information coming at you. The movie is edited so beautifully, where there's like, sometimes The Wizard of Oz is here, and sometimes Lost Highway or Mulholland Drive is here, and they're showing you the similarities and what those mean. It's not just a bunch of people talking at you. It's really, really good. Please go see this movie. Janus Films is putting it out. They're also the people that release Firewalk with Me and Lost Highway at these things. So we're going to show you the trailer for the movie, and then we'll get right into the interview with Alexander, who I have to say, one of the Q&As that's going to come up, although I'll put it way out later. He was at Dallas, and that's the first time I saw the movie. I was like in the theater watching Lynch Oz, and then I immediately go up on stage and interview him. And I was so amped up, and I had so many questions, because I was like, wait a minute, how did he do this movie? And so I tried not to ask the same questions there. We sort of have a different conversation today. But if you want to see, like, amped up Scott, like as if I had like too much caffeine or something, that Q&A will be later. Today's interview, I'm much more calm, subdued. Yes, of course. As always, you can go out to Tucker DS Press or BlueRoseMag.com and get either my Lost Highway book or Firewalk with Me book. We have very few color copies left of Firewalk with Me. We're down to the last case. I sold a lot in Dallas. The Lost Highway book, as you see, is also color. I gave a copy to Alexander while we were at the event. It kills me to give a copy. Ugh. But he's had some very nice things to say about it, which was great because he's such a wonderful artist. So enjoy my interview with Alexander. And right now, let's take a look at the trailer of Lynch Oz.
I do see the story of The Wizard of Oz as the story of David Lynch himself becoming a filmmaker.
David has gone over the rainbow from the very first film ever. He lives in a different reality than you or I do, and that's quite obvious.
Why would Lynch be that absorbed with The Wizard of Oz? Did he watch The Wizard of Oz on a perfect day at the perfect time as a child, and it sort of baked into his subconscious?
So now I would like to welcome to the show the director of the trailer you just watched, Alexander Philippe. Welcome, Alexander.
Thanks so much, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us today. You know, just like the movie, I feel like that trailer is a surprise because you keep expecting there to be a clip and there isn't one. And of course, the whole movie are clips. So, yes. You know, how did you come upon that idea for the trailer?
Well, I mean, you know, there are restrictions, I will have to say, in terms of fair use. You know, fair use works in the context of the film, but fair use does not work for promotional purposes, you know. So we essentially, you know, we're not able to use clips, you know, in the trailer. And so obviously, because we have this very interesting opening and sort of opening sequence and closing sequence in Lynch Oz itself, which we shot inside this theater at Central City, Colorado, which in fact is the background to your image right here. Yep, there you go. You know, we thought we would sort of essentially build on that and create a trailer that is more mysterious than anything, you know, and yeah, so it's hopefully invites people to come and watch Lynch Oz, which, as you said, is chock full of clips, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's all clips, which, you know, the last time you and I talked was live on stage at the Texas Theater, moments after I had seen the film for the first time, and I've been telling everyone, oh, it was definitely my least professional interview I ever conducted in my entire life. I was so amped up by that movie. I had awesome. A billion questions for you that I could not control my excitement. I'm subdued now. You know, I'm going to be okay. I'm even going to let you talk sometimes. But for those who haven't seen the movie, let's start there. I just had never seen a documentary put together like this that was just all of these clips side by side. And if you're a Lynch fan, it's like the most glorious meal someone has set out for you that you've been waiting for your whole life. But let's give a little taste to people who maybe don't know what we're talking about, even though they've seen the trailer.
Well, I mean, I think Lynch Oz, for me, I have to say, starts from obviously a burning passion for Lynch. I mean, it's my first real Lynchian experience was Lost Highway in the movie theater. I mean, I was a Lynch fan, before. I think I definitely remember considering myself a Lynch fan, walking into that theater, but walking out of the theatrical experience of Lost Highway, I mean, at that point, there's no going back. There was no going back for me, and I certainly haven't come back from that experience. I think it's so extraordinary. But so, I mean, I've been making films about film now for a long time. In fact, right after Lynch Oz, we just premiered a film on William Shatner called You Can Call Me Bill, which is my 11th, feature doc. And so I always like to really explore cinema and, delve into the mysteries of the creative process of influence and inspiration and all these wonderful ideas. And try and do that cinematically and try to do that in sort of in different ways. And so, I've always, I think, wanted to make a film about David Lynch, but you can't just make a film about David Lynch to make a film about David Lynch. I mean, there's obviously been a number of docs, made about him. So it's for me, the question is always, well, what am I going to bring to the table that's going to be new and fresh? And I think for Lynch, the key is obviously not to solve the David Lynch riddle. There's nothing to solve. It's the beauty of it is that he is a surrealist, that there's a lot to discuss, that we all have a different sort of take on his films, and it's all valid. I mean, it's this is someone who taps into the infinite. This is someone who gets his ideas, as he himself says, from the room over there, right? Whatever that is. And so that's such a wonderful way to, I mean, I think this is one of the main reasons why we love him so much. So I was very interested, though, in the sort of references that come up every now and then, or, if you're on, obviously, David Lynch forums or conversations, for years now, I mean, fans have been sort of pointing out possible connections that exist between Lynch and Oz. Obviously, Wild at Heart is certainly the most, overt reference. I mean, in the sense that it's a very conscious one, not just in the narrative structure of the film and the characters, in the archetypes, in the fact that the characters in Wild at Heart have seen the Wizard of Oz. They reference the Wizard of Oz. But I would argue that Wild at Heart is the least Ozian of his films. Where it gets really interesting is the connections that are not necessarily conscious. So this idea that the Wizard of Oz maybe is a part of David Lynch's sort of, filmmaking DNA was essentially what attracted me to make this film. And so we went down that, we opened that door and we went down that rabbit hole, or down that particular yellow brick road, as as it were. And, and the discoveries were, I mean, it's incredible. I wasn't sure, to be honest, when we started this particular film, that it was going to be a feature, that it was going to be enough meat on the bones for a feature. But literally the moment we started working on it and started obviously, collaborating with the likes of John Waters and Karyn Kusama and Amy Nicholson and these wonderful, David Lowery, incredible people, then at that point it became very, very clear that our challenge would be to keep it down to about 90 minutes and not make it a 3 or 4 or 5 hour film,
Well, going back to the William Shatner thing, do you have anything from his record Has Been in the documentary?
Yes. So
I love that record so much.
Yeah. So there's a lot of references to his musical career, because he recently did a performance at the Kennedy Center with the National Symphony Orchestra and Ben Folds, and so it's very much a part of the
Okay, good. I just want to be sure because I know everyone makes fun of the Rocket Man time, and maybe you should make fun of it, maybe you shouldn't. But Has Been, no one should make. That is a great record. But again, we're not here. You know, I can get distracted pretty quickly. From my memory, there's only one shot or one focus point on Fire Walk with Me with Lynch Oz. I think you show her in the when she's in the picture and looks back, sort of. I remember that because I kind of went through afterwards, and to me, it feels like Fire Walk with Me is probably the least Ozian movie he did. But then because you do a lot of Twin Peaks, which there is a lot of stuff in there from that. I was curious if you sort of had that feeling when you were editing, because like I say, you know, for those of you who haven't seen it, and I want to say, most times you think a documentary, I'm gonna watch that at home. No. This I don't think this movie should ever even be released on streaming or video. It should only be seen in the theater because of the split screen that you do. It's got to be wide. Go see this movie immediately. But what about Fire Walk with Me? Do you feel that there are some Ozian things that I'm not seeing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that we have. I mean, I know you mentioned the painting, but there's more. I'm pretty sure that we have David Bowie's Red Shoes.
Oh, you're right. You do the Judy stuff.
Right. We do all the Judy stuff.
That's right. I'm so sorry. You are right. That's on me.
I'm trying to think. Well, without giving it away, there's also a point where John Waters talks about the sort of the 50s, and there's that scene, I think, with Laura and her dad when he says, wash your hands,
You're right. That's on me. I saw so many Lynch films, but I was thinking about it afterwards. I mean, you definitely focus on Mulholland Drive quite a bit.
Oh, sure.
You know, it should, and Lost Highway, but it does, and even Eraserhead and Straight Story, which is
they're all ending. I mean, even the short films. I mean, even the early shorts. Yeah.
So we talked about this on stage because to me it's so interesting as an author where I do these books and then I want to talk about something that Lynch does, or if I'm interviewing a DP, I want to use a picture in the book. And there's just so many rights, and it when you're an artist and you want to talk about art, the last thing on your mind is a frickin' lawyer and somebody trying to stop you. And what you're doing is on such a wide level. How much of your day when you're working on these films is you having to deal with laws and lawyers and rights and music rights and all of that business side of the art that you're creating?
Well, I mean, again, that's the thing about a movie like Lynch Oz is that it is a fair use movie, and that's we've been working with fair use for a long time, so I have a pretty deep understanding of it. My producing partner, Carrie Roy, is very much an expert in that, and obviously we work with fair use attorneys, which is absolutely necessary for a project like this. So, we work with Donaldson Califf Perez. I mean, they're the gold standard really for fair use. And so it is a process. I mean, I have certainly a good enough understanding to know in the writing stage and early edit stage of what's, very likely to be okay, what's not going to be okay. So I don't try things that are just not going to be fine, And then what is going to likely require a conversation with the attorneys, and you don't get everything you want. You at the end of the day, fair use says very, it's you have to follow the the guidelines, and you have to ultimately listen to the attorneys and trust, because they have to approve every single usage. Otherwise, they're not going to give you your fair use certification. So you don't have a choice in the matter. But we take this very seriously. I mean, at the end of the day, fair use, and I think it's really important to say this, is that fair use comes with an understanding and a respect for copyright. Right. And the films that I make are very much films that are designed to promote those films and to keep them alive in the public consciousness, for many, many years to come. So we're not the enemy. We're here to help promote, to help recontextualize those films.
I have not watched The Wizard of Oz since my kids were young, which was a while ago. Mm-hmm. When your movie was over, the first thing I wanted to do was sit down and watch The Wizard of Oz, which is just not something that would come to me. And this is the thing that I feel like all those lawyers and studio executives don't get. Mm-hmm. When I'm writing about Twin Peaks or Lost Highway or other things, like, it's going to help you sell your product. It's not going to take something from your product. Right. The rule for me is I can use a picture in my book as long as I'm referencing that picture. That's the rule. I can't just have a picture of Sheryl Lee that I'm not dissecting. Is that sort of your rule as well? You can use that clip if you're analyzing that clip.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, fair use in documentary filmmaking gets fairly complex, but generally speaking, yes. And I mean, I think the main point, which I think is very similar to what you're talking about, is you can't just use any shot you want or any length of the shot that you want and sort of start B-rolling the piece, because at that point you're taking advantage of somebody else's copyright. So right. that and there are people who don't do it right, and I think, and that frankly it pisses me off as a documentary filmmaker, because I think you have to do it right. So yes, it's whether it's criticism or whether it's the clip itself makes a point within the larger narrative of the piece, it has to serve a purpose. You can't just have it there because you want to have it there. And that's why when I'm saying it starts at the writing process, when I'm building the chapters based on my conversations with the participants, I think very actively on a micro level, line by line, moment by moment, is this something that I can illustrate? Does this particular line of dialogue naturally lead to a clip under fair use? And so you have to be very precise about that. So there's no wiggle room. There's no room for error on this. But yeah, I think in a way it's very similar. I mean, to what you're doing, it just involves a lot more clips.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Because it's all clips. Now, you had said that it was kind of COVID based that sort of really pushed you to having no talking heads in this movie. But let's dream for a second that the world never had COVID. Let's just take that moment to think we didn't have to live 2020. Yeah. But, in a perfect world, do you think you would have made this film this way, where it's all clips and no commentary from someone just sitting there like we're doing right now? Because I think it's genius, but you sort of did it out of necessity. I mean, was that your vision from the beginning, do you think?
Well, it's hard to say, because I was working on another film at the same time, which we had started earlier, a little bit earlier. It's called The Taking. It's also coming out right now. And it's a film basically about, it's kind of the semiotics of Monument Valley through the films of John Ford, so it's kind of an analysis of Monument Valley in film and media. And the alternative history that it sort of created in our brains. And that film, before COVID hit, I had made the decision to do it, to let the landscape and the clips tell the story 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So when COVID hit and we started working on Lynch Oz, we literally started working on Lynch Oz, I think in March 2020.
Yeah, that was it.
That was it, right? So I think the best way that I can answer your question is I think the chapter structure would have remained the same. I think I was very sold on that particular idea that because you're talking about, David Lynch and the Wizard of Oz and these very sort of esoteric ideas about the creative process, that it made sense to get to explore each participant's kind of unique spin on this. But had COVID not been around, I think we might have gone to film those people to be able to cut back to them occasionally during that process. But I'm not sure, I don't know.
I think it's better without it.
I agree.
It was surprising that you dedicated the film to COVID. That was a shock to me.
Fake news.
But I mean, that was there were many things that kind of just like, when you see a piece of art that you're not expecting, to me, that's the best. That's the greatest thing when just something, I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't expect what I got. And that was one of the things. I had just never seen something done like that. And and to me, so much of Lynch comes out of necessity, and doing the interviews I've done, there's some scene that you think is just genius. And then you find out, well, it just worked out that way. He didn't have any time and he had to do this. So it happens. That's what a good artist does. You react to the situations you have.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think every film is a product of its time, and that's, warts and all. I mean, I think every filmmaker, you can look back at a film that you've made so many years ago and you're like, oh gosh, I wish I'd done it this way or that way or whatever. Well, you were reacting to what was happening. You were a different person then. There were different circumstances. There were things that happened that shaped the making of the film for good or for bad. And I think that, I mean, and then, you never have the budget that you hope you would have. Which in a way is always great because you have something to push against. You have to find a way to sort of navigate through the limitations and make it work, somehow. So it's never perfect, it's never perfect. It's always, it's always a process of self-discovery and frustration, and then the critics come out and some of them hate it, and so it's hard. I mean, it's really, really hard, but I think you're right. I mean, I think every, I think good art, I mean, whether it's painting or music or whatever it is, filmmaking, you have artists who are reacting to all of the circumstances, all the cards that they've been dealt, in the present moment, and trying to do the best that they can.
You'd mentioned that your first real Lynch experience was Lost Highway, and then you came out of the theater feeling differently. What was it about Lost Highway that did that to you, that made you this lifelong Lynch fan?
I mean, I don't know how long you have, because we can go down. Which is, by the way, is why I'm reading your book right now, which you so kindly gave me, which I really love. I love the breakdown, by the way, of the songs. That's really cool stuff.
Thank you.
Really cool stuff. Love that so much. I mean, I there's so many reasons. I mean, obviously, you seem to have a very, very personal relationship with that film as well, which is really cool. But I think for me, if I think about it, I'm a huge film noir fan. I always have been. And so, I mean, this is really like Lynch's neo-noir. I mean, it's a full-on sort of neo-noir, but it's also in its own right one of the greatest it's one of the greatest noir films of all time. It's also one of the greatest films of all time, no question. But from the score to, I mean, obviously the acting, this incredible sort of doppelganger idea, and the way that he handles that, I think, in the film is so strong, so powerful. I mean, it has all of the key ideas and motifs of a Lynch film, really, but it's done in a way where, I mean, there's so many memorable scenes. I mean, of course, when Robert Blake, walks up to Bill Pullman, in the club, and the music starts sort of disappearing. I mean those moments are endlessly quotable. I mean, right. You take just that little scene alone, and it's one of the greatest film scenes ever made. I mean, I think it's interesting to think about Lynch as occasionally he turns on the sort of the horror filmmaking. I mean, occasionally he becomes, even for 5 minutes at a time, like a horror filmmaker. But when he does, he literally is the best horror filmmaker you've ever seen, right? I mean, that scene just gets under your skin in such an incredible way, like, call me, I'm at your house right now. What a thing that is. You think about the equivalent in Mulholland Drive, which is, of course, the Winkies. Mm-hmm. And then you think about how many horror filmmakers, and I'm talking, even if you look at the best of all time, how many are able to pull off a daytime scene with really, like in a diner, in a safe space, and just completely freak you out like this. I can think of one. Like, only David Lynch is able to do this. And then he turns on the comedy. I mean, you've got the whole, the tailgating scene. What a thing that is. I mean, it's absolutely, it's exhilarating. It's super funny. It's literally belongs to a completely different film. Tonally, these two scenes have nothing to do with each other. And yet when you watch the film as a whole, it completely belongs, to that film. So that's the thing that is remarkable about Lynch. But I think you see it at the highest level, I think, in a movie like Lost Highway, is that he deals with so many ideas and genres and tones and tropes, and he somehow manages to make them work, within this one single piece and this singular vision. And there's nothing like it, I mean. Yeah.
Well, I love what you're saying, and your understanding of Lynch comes across so much in the film, because I have been in this world for a long time. Normally, when other movies are talking about David Lynch, they just get it wrong. And the thing that I loved about your movie is I never felt that way. And I've been studying Lost Highway more than probably anyone on the planet the last year to get ready for this book. When I saw your movie, you were showing clips from Lost Highway, and it was like I had never seen them before, because like you're saying, you're not B-rolling this clip. You are showing it in context with something else to make a different point that you're not even making. Your narrator of that chapter is making it. So there's like another level on the film. This is not a film where someone says, sit down. I'm about to tell you everything you need to
Right.
know about David
Right.
Lynch. I know this and you know nothing. We don't need you. That's not what your movie is at all. It is an exploration of here's this, how does this reflect this? And this person's telling it, and then you're presenting it, and the viewer has to put that together. That's what I loved about this film. You respect the audience. No studio executive was concerned about this. Like, nobody said to you, you know, David Lynch's movies, like, at most gross $5 million or something. Like, can we do this? I mean, I would think this had to kind of be a hard sell, or was everyone in on this?
Oh, I mean, it's a small movie, you know. I mean, it's I mean, I'm not going to divulge the budget, but it is, you know. I mean, Lynch Oz is definitely not.
Yeah, but it's getting a wide release. It's not like you're showing it in your mom's basement or
No,
something.
no. I mean,
This is a big deal. Even outside of me, I'm seeing it everywhere. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a full release.
No, it's of course, I'm very very proud and very happy. I mean, of course, it's not going to be the next Avatar, sadly.
No, thankfully. Nobody wants the next Avatar.
Yeah,
That's not what we're looking for.
No, I'm talking in terms of box office revenue.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's not going to be that, but I really do hope that people come out, you know, and go to the theater, as you said. I mean, I think it is meant to be seen on the big screen. I mean, it just opened in New York, and it's about to open now in 30 plus cities. I think we've got, Los Angeles is going to be. It opens on the 9th. It's going to be at the New Vidiot's. We actually have a big sort of epic Q&A on the 11th at 4 p.m. And it's going to be, obviously I'm going to be there, but Karin Kusama is going to be there. Rodney Asher is going to be there. Amy Nicholson, David Lawrence, the editor, Aaron Lawrence, who did the score. So yeah.
And did we need a host? I mean, look, I'm a host here.
Dude, you should come. Yeah, of course.
I mean, well, I'm just saying. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No.
I'm saying, if you need a host, let me know. But I want people to go see it. And, you know, we live in this world, and I should run the clip of David Lynch. Even with everything David Lynch did, my favorite thing he ever did was the clip about watching a movie on your phone. I'm sure you've seen it.
Yes, it's so good.
It's so good. But I mean, I can't imagine watching what you did on your stupid phone, like, because there's so much visually. This is not like one of those documentaries that is just thrown together. You have to see it, and it has to be wide. So people have to go see this. And I think Lynch people will, because they want this. They want to have their minds opened to it.
I hope so. I do. I really do. And I mean, again, I think hopefully the word of mouth, I mean, people who've seen the film, I mean, it seems to be getting a very enthusiastic response. I mean, there are, of course, people who don't like it, but that's perfectly
fine. Dude, you're not getting any bad reviews, though, are you?
Of course. No. There's not too many, but we just got a bad one this morning from the San Francisco Chronicle. It's actually a very interesting one. He argues that none of the participants in the film understand the Wizard of Oz. I'm like, okay, that's a big statement.
Yeah,
big statement. All right, that's bold, but hey,
it's funny that they wouldn't say David Lynch. I think everyone understands the Wizard of Oz, even little kids.
Apparently, yeah. But anyway, it's fine. I'm always very interested, to be honest, in the bad reviews, because look, I've certainly made my peace as a filmmaker a long time ago that you're never going to please everybody. It's not possible. Or if you do, then maybe there's something a little bit wrong. Like the Shatner film right now still has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it worries me a little bit. I'm like, wait a minute, like, somebody please give me a bad review now, But
I did a book about moonlighting, and somebody was mad at me because I didn't interview Orson Welles.
mm,
I mean, he's dead.
yeah, well,
I
yeah,
mean, it was like just had stories about Orson Welles. Well, he's dead. If I
yeah.
could talk to dead people, I think I'd do a book outside of moonlighting. I don't think I would have done a moonlighting book. So I mean, I don't know. You'll get the bad review because there'll be someone that's
You
mad you
know,
didn't have Leonard Nimoy
I,
in the Shatner movie. But
well, I
uh,
made a film. I made a film about the shower scene in Psycho, right? Which
mhm.
is 91 minutes about the 2 minute scene. But and one of the reviews literally said something like, it's too bad the film isn't more about the shower scene. Okay. There's nothing to say about that.
No, I mean, and I actually don't try to read reviews. The only reason I know that is someone told me. I
Yeah.
don't look at any. I would never go onto Amazon and see what people give my books. Like, first
Yeah.
of all, I'm working, so I'm writing my next book, and my next like that's how I view things. So I want to ask you a question about another one of your movies,
Yes.
The People versus George Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to get your opinion on something. I am actually working on another book right now about 90s cinema. It's going to come out next year. And I'm looking at that decade. The name of the book is The Last Decade of Cinema.
Mm.
And because I think when they jettisoned 35 millimeter for digital, that it sort of ended that time of film. It
Sure.
lasted for so long.
Mm.
And it seems to me like George Lucas was sort of the villain. He's a little bit the villain of my book because it was really him who
Mm.
said, if you want to play Attack of the Clones in 2002,
Yeah.
we want you to have a digital projector. And so all these movie theaters are throwing their 35 millimeter away to get it.
Right.
I'm curious, as someone who did a thing on George Lucas, how you feel about my assessment of that. Is that fair?
Mm.
Do we need 35 millimeter for film to exist? Where do you kind of lay on all I laid out there? How would you like to
Yeah.
comment on digital versus film? All of those things. I just am curious
Yeah.
as a filmmaker if you want to attack me and give me that 1-star review, or how you feel
I
about all
I think I mean, obviously, because we're in a world now that has digital, I certainly don't want to come out and say, we need to go back to 100% film. But I think we should make sure that hopefully we have it all, that film never dies. I mean, clearly we're never going to go back to the days of just film. But it is pretty special when you get to watch a print, of a great classic film, or Lawrence of Arabia on 70 millimeter, or whatever the
that?
case may be. It is a very different experience. But you could say the same about VHS. I think there are certain films, and I think Quentin Tarantino certainly in his podcast is kind of pushing that a lot. That watching certain films on VHS are a singular experience. It's very unique, and watching the same film on whatever 16 or 35 or VHS or DVD or 4K UHD is going to be a different experience because it's all textual at the end of the day, right? So yeah, I think film will never die, but I certainly have no big illusions in terms of, it's still going to be a specialty thing. It's always at this point now, it's more of a let's make it an event. Let's bring the Wizard of Oz in 35 millimeter to our theater, and then I think people need to go and support that, because I think if they don't, then that's how film dies.
Right. Exactly.
What I am a little bit not worried about, but I'm curious, is to watch the restoration of Inland Empire. Because what's interesting to me about Inland Empire aesthetically is that if I'm not mistaken, he shot it on mini DV, right? I mean, it's right. So it's made to kind of look like shit. It's not designed to look great. It's this kind of exploration of this low res, not great format and what to do with that. And so I'm a little concerned about a pristine kind of 4K. What does that mean? I mean, have you seen it?
I have. I did in Chicago. Last year in Chicago, we did the same Lynch thing. And I went in to see, and that was the first time I got to see the 4K. It's interesting. I love that you're bringing this up, because I love when someone busts my chops. And here I am. I was just going on about 35 millimeter and it shouldn't go this way. But with Inland Empire, it was so horrible before that it was kind of unwatchable to me. It really was horrible.
Yeah.
And now that has been taken away. And I think that's a hard movie to get into to begin with, because it's so long and so confusing. And what am I watching? That to remove the just crappy video of it and have it look better moved one of the obstacles. But I never thought about it. Like, that's why, people are mad at George Lucas, because he was like, I'm going to take what you saw as a little kid and I'm hiding it from you forever. And that's kind of what Lynch has done. But it's funny that I sort of agree that Inland Empire kind of needed it.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. No, I mean, I'm very anxious to see it, but I think in a way, like in my collection, I'll probably want to have both versions,
right? Because
they're different films. I mean,
they're different,
right? They're different experiences altogether, right? Yeah.
And that's how it was for Lost Highway for me, because I had seen the 4K restoration, but last week in Dallas, they had a 35 millimeter print, the original one. And I was pretty busy. I didn't get to watch. The only two things I watched all week was your movie and Lost Highway in 35 millimeter. Cause I said, look, I want to compare them. And the 35 millimeter print was so good. It just was better, but you can't get that at home. I don't have a projector. So you might as well have the 4K at home for Lost Highway, but I feel like in the theater, it should be the 35 millimeter. Sure. And I get that there's a money aspect and, all of those things, but I love film. I want to see film. When I'm out in LA, we're doing an event in LA on June 23rd. We're showing Firewalk with Me. So if anyone's in the LA area, come on out. The day before that, I'm going to go to the New Bev Quentin Tarantino's theater, and see The Thin Red Line by Terrence Malick in 35 millimeter print. Wow. And I should be excited for my event and to sell my books and do my stuff, but I'm actually most excited to go see The Thin Red Line in 35 millimeter.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's going to be something.
What would make you go see something if you were at home, you didn't have nothing to do, I was going to say flipping through the paper, but that's because I'm old. You're looking through your phone and that's playing in 35 millimeter. Yeah. What is going to make you go out and buy a ticket and go see that?
It wouldn't take much, honestly. I mean, I think I'm a big fan of classic Hollywood, So I think any sort of great noir film. There was actually
Chinatown? Would that be Chinatown? Is that one of your favorites?
Oh, I mean, sure. Of course I love Chinatown. I would still consider, Chinatown is still, it's kind of an early neo-noir, but it's still a neo-noir, of sorts. But yeah, of course. I mean, my gosh, that'd be amazing. But no, I was in northern Washington State a few months ago. It was back in November last year, And there's a theater in a little town called Mount Vernon had what they called Noirvember. The whole month they had these classic, late 40s, early 50s noir films on 35 millimeter in this beautiful old theater, kind of a little bit like the one in your background there, but smaller theater. And man, it was amazing. I went to see, trying to remember, there was This Gun for Hire with Alan Ladd and Veronica Lake. They may have had Out of the Past. Well, they had a really good sort of lineup of films. But yeah, I mean, the prints were a little old, but
that's great though.
Yeah, I know. I love that.
We showed George Griffith's film on 35 millimeter. He directed a film called From the Head. And afterwards, he was a little disappointed because it was blurry for a second and the sound didn't quite work. And, there's a couple pops. And I said, yeah, that was great. That was a human did it. Like your film was projected by a human. Computer makes it perfect. A human has imperfections. And that's why we go to the theater.
Yeah.
For imperfections. Like I don't want my film to be perfect when I sit there.
I agree. And I think that's the problem with a lot of these big Hollywood films now, is that they're all so polished and perfect, and who cares? I just
yeah.
Yeah. I'd much rather, as imperfect as it is, I would much rather go and watch and support, the new Ari Aster, Beau is Afraid, which I think is getting a lot of, it's getting a lot of really mean reviews. And I'm like, but this is an important filmmaker, he's taking a huge swing. He's really trying to do something really special here. And, look, yeah, I didn't like the ending of it, but it's his most personal film. And he's such a smart, talented filmmaker that I'm sure he has a reason for it. And you know what? That's fine. I really like this idea of imperfection, of filmmakers trying to do something unique and unusual. And sometimes, even if it's for a moment, failing at it. I think that's refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Back in the day when Do the Right Thing came out, the ending made me so angry. I'm like, why are they ruining Danny Aiello's pizza place? Like, that's what they're ruining their own pizza place. And he wasn't a bad guy. And you're getting angry. And like Spike Lee wants you to get angry. That's why he ruined the place. Like, he wants you to be an activist. When a film can make you do that, that's what we want. Not just sit down and you're fine, everything's fine, Superman's gonna get the glowing rock to the bad guy, and go home and buy something on the internet.
Well, that's the thing. I think the intent of the film is so transparent sometimes. I mean, you look at a lot of these big franchise movies, and again, I'm not against them, but there's so many of them, and they're strangling the market to a point where it's becoming a problem. Like I'm like, we should, fine, let's have those movies, but let's also make some room for everything else, and the problem is when those movies get made specifically to sell merchandise, a lot of them, that's it's
right.
not,
because I mean, yes, you've released 4 Lynch Oz action figures in the Burger King Happy Meal, but just 4. That's it.
That's it.
I mean, it wasn't that many.
That'd be really cool, though.
It would be
Lynch as the Wizard of Oz action figure. Yeah,
with red ruby slippers. I'd buy that.
Yeah, I would too. Actually,
I mean, I'd get that. Let's get on that. So let's bring it back. Tell people. I mean, I just cannot promote this movie enough.
Oh, thank you.
It was so good, and it's just, it opens your mind. And I will say I disagreed with everything. That was the thing I was telling people. I'm like, I think some people are wrong. And if you see a David Lynch thing and you don't disagree with it, then there's something wrong with you. You
That's
know,
right.
like that every Lynch theory should make you want to make your own theory. That's what his films are for.
Yeah.
It's not about agreeing with or disagreeing with. It's about stimulating your mind and seeing things that you hadn't seen before. And that definitely happened. I told you, like, your use of the return is what really surprised me. I mean, that's where I do have a fundamental disagree. I'm not sure that the last scene in the return has anything to do with Oz at all. I don't, whose chapter is that?
We mostly talk about, I mean, the return comes back in a number of chapters, but it's most
But
prominent.
the one about the screen.
It's Rodney Asher's chapter. It's chapter 2.
Okay. I mean, it's great, but I totally disagreed with everything he said.
Great.
And that's fun. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I would love to debate him on how he's wrong, and he would tell me I'm wrong. And, you know, we'd have a cup of coffee, and
for sure.
Because
come on the 11th, he'll be there.
Yeah.
So you can actually get in his face.
And fight it out. But where can people see this movie? Where can they follow it? You know, let's give all that information.
Well, I mean, it's opened in New York at the IFC Center right now. It's opening on the 9th at multiple theaters across the country, and then it's going to keep opening in a bunch of other theaters. But people should go to the main page, which is on Janus Films. It's like Lynch. I mean, if you Google, I believe, Lynch/Oz official, you'll find immediately the page, and you'll be able to sort of see all the theaters and the times, and book your tickets. It's playing also in Canada, so it's North America right now. In fact,
said like 30 cities, pretty big. All the major markets, probably.
There's it's, I would say not all, but I think it's also expanding right now. They keep adding venues. So, who knows if the film, again, if people go see it and there's more of a grassroots movement, I'm sure they'll keep adding. I know that the Review Theater in Toronto is doing something really cool. They actually came up with their own poster of it. It's like a limited edition poster they're going to sell only at the screening there, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful poster. So if you're in Toronto, just go to the Review Cinema and get a poster because it's pretty sweet. So it's I mean, LA, there's also Los Feliz. So there's a Vidiot's in Eagle Rock, the Santa Monica Lemley, and the Los Feliz Theater. And that all three opened the week of June 9th. But again, I'll be in person on the 11th and at the Vidiot's at 4 p.m. And I will also be in person at Santa Monica at 7 p.m. on the 10th. The Roxy, I'll be on the 12th in San Francisco, which I believe is a 7 p.m. screening. And then, you've got, Portland and Seattle and St. Louis and, several places in New York. I think Ithaca as well. There's a lot. So, and then it'll be on the Criterion Channel.
But that's later. We don't want people doing that.
That's later.
I'm telling you, you go see this movie, then you watch it the second time on the Criterion Channel. Or people are going to be hearing from me, and you don't want to hear from me. That's what I'm saying. I will be I will give a bad review to that person as a human on their Facebook page. And if you come to Florida, I'm in Florida. I'm happy to interview you or do a Q&A if you come around, because I'm behind this film. And then also we're going to try to get the trailer for your movie for our LA event. So if people come out to that, they can see it there.
Thank you.
I mean, you really did something here. I mean, I know you've done Kubrick and all these other documentaries. You're
not Kubrick. That's Rodney. Room 237. That's Rodney Asher, actually. Who's
Oh,
in Lynch?
that's not your movie?
No. It's Rodney Asher,
I'm sorry.
who you disagree with on the
Oh,
return.
that's right. He was in it. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no wonder.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
all these connections,
all
you know.
these connections. I'm so sorry. You're right.
No, it's all good. But Hitchcock and Ridley Scott and William Friedkin and William Shatner, and yeah, that's all me. Yeah.
And I don't know. I loved it. Can't promote it more. Anything I can do to help, let me know. Go see this movie. And I always end my interviews with a question about kindness, because I think all we have in the world is how we treat each other. So I like to ask people, who was someone who was kind to you at the beginning of your career that you just want to give a nod to that helped you?
Well, two come to mind. Immediately, my parents. My parents have been, I'm very, very lucky and very fortunate that they've always trusted me to follow my heart and follow my passion and do what I love, and that I would find a way to make it work. And so, without their support and encouragement, like, I have no idea, if I'd be doing what I'm doing now. So they will always come first. And then, someone who gave me tough love when I was in dramatic writing school, who passed away, sadly. It's one of my professors. His name was Charlie Porpora. And I was working on my thesis screenplay, and I was struggling with it, and I had this other idea. And so I went to him, I requested a meeting. I said, look, I'm hitting some roadblocks here. Is it okay if I switch? I have this great idea here, and I want to do it. I'm just going to switch projects. And he said, look, if you do that, I will fail you.
Mm.
And, so I went home, I was like, oh gosh, but I got to tell you, that for me was an act of love, in the sense that he forced me to confront the structural issues that I had in my screenplay, and to get the job done, to overcome that obstacle. And thanks to him and thanks to that thing, I have never not completed a work. When I start something now, I find a way to finish it. And you're always going to hit roadblocks. And, and I think that's true. Every screenwriter probably relates to this, or filmmaker, or whatever. What's the point of having 10 unfinished screenplays? You're not going to do anything with that. You got to be able to find a way to finish and solve the problems, and then move on to the next one, And so that was a gift. And at the time, it didn't feel like love, but it was. I think now I can safely say this was an act of love. So yeah.
You have to finish The Hat. I don't know if you're a Sondheim fan, but you've got to finish The Hat. So I love that answer. Thank you for your kindness to me in Dallas and here
likewise.
today.
Thank you,
and
Scott.
Thank you for being just making a great, great film for Lynch fans. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You want to hear about our specials? We don't have any.
I like to remember things my own way.
Stay home. Read.
Read.
I want you to get a fucking driver's manual! I want you to study that motherfucker!
Well, where the hell are you going?
I'm going over here.
Damn, these people are confusing.
Well, thank you everyone for watching, and Alexander for being on the show. Again, go see this movie. You want good movies? Go see good movies. Lost Highway book, Fire Walk with Me book, get them. It helps. At tuckerdspress.com or bluerosemag.com. Follow me on Twitter at ScottLuckStory or at BlueRoseMag1. And come see me in LA. I will be there June 23rd and 24th, showing both films, talking, doing what I do. Subscribe to the Blue Rose Mag YouTube channel because I'm telling you some great Q&As are coming over the next couple weeks. And that's our time.